Last on Everdark, Julian, Elizabeth, and Sophia were walking in the garden, discussing some of the possibilities the existence of vampires raises, when Elena attacks Julian. She blames him for Heath's second and third death, as Damon destroyed the rotting corpse in the catacombs, as without the soul, it would not remain. Elena's actions cause her second life to be forfeit to Damon, but Julian and Elizabeth convince him to spare her. Balthazar must take her mind instead. Everdark, Episode 62, Walk on the Beach.
On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most angry and 1 being the least, what are you feeling?
Julian asked, as Damon curled an arm around his shoulders. The Vampire King considered this. Was Julian asking if he was angry at him, or angry at Elena, or angry in general? Probably all of them, with the true emphasis on himself. "I am not angry with you," Damon answered. Julian let out a breath, but then tensed as Damon continued. "I am concerned."
Concerned? That somehow sounds worse. Anger fades. Concern often grows?
Julian made that a question. "You are so young. I forget this. You do not know our ways or what it is to lead predators," Damon explained. Julian bit his lower lip, and his head drooped like a flower on a stem.
I just couldn't let you kill her.
I know you couldn't. I shouldn't have allowed you to influence me," Damon said quietly. He watched as Balthazar and Christian, with Ridley's help, assisted Elena into the house. Her mind was too broken at the moment for Balthazar to do anything safely. She needed to feed, or be fed if she wouldn't take care of herself, and then Balthazar would be able to pluck her mind like a musical instrument. Elizabeth's presence neared them. With just a look at Sophia, the child vampire took the older woman's hand.
"Let's go inside and find Henry,"
Sophia suggested, but there was just the slightest thread of vampire seduction in it to overcome Elizabeth's desire to stay with Julian. She reluctantly allowed Sophia to lead her away. Fiona turned to them and said with a slight bow,
"I will go search out Arceus, unless you need me."
"No, Fiona. We are well. Thank you for your assistance," Damon said. And he was appreciative. Of course he had not needed her assistance, but that she had acted to help him. It was the first step.
"I will see you both later then."
Another bow, and she teleported away.
That is such a cool power.
Julian breathed, looking longingly at where she had been. "You will learn to do it just as easily," he assured his fledgling. He would make it so.
I don't know.
Julian let out an uncertain laugh.
I keep imagining half of me appearing in one place and the other half staying where I was.
"I will make sure that does not happen," Damon said. The image of that happening, though, was now in his head. He already had the image of Julian's heart being ripped out by Elena. This was not adding to his mood. "I wish to walk."
Okay. Where?
Julian asked. "Anywhere. Take me to some place you love."
Shouldn't we stay here, though? I think some of the Muir and Callie houses are coming to see you, and...
"Then I definitely need to walk. They will wait. They will benefit from my calmer mood." Julian nodded.
I think I have the perfect place. Do you like the water?
"It has been some time since I was near the ocean. Is that where you wish to go?" Julian nodded again, a smile breaking across his lips.
I want to take you to the beach.
He looked a little sad for a moment.
The beach is the one place where I think I might miss the sun, although it's too cold for swimming.
Damon let a slow smile cross his face. "Not for vampires." Julian's eyes widened even as he turned his body so that he could latch onto Damon's waist.
Something tells me that you don't wear a swimsuit.
"What's a swimsuit?" Julian just shook his head and laughed, but then his fledgling was eagerly pulling him towards the front of the house. He laced one of his hands with Julian, and the two of them jogged to the front of the house and then onto the sidewalk. It was much like their first walk to Julian's house.
I feel naughty doing this.
Julian admitted with a laugh.
Like we're playing hooky.
"Perhaps we are, but it is a good thing." As Julian led him down the sidewalk towards the direction of the ocean, Damon could smell the lovely salt water. His fledgling cast a glance back at Ravenscroft Manor with a slightly worried expression. Reading Julian's thoughts, Damon answered, They will be safe. If an attack were to occur, I would know and teleport us there in moments.
Balthazar and Christian might worry where we are, though, even if no one comes to attack them.
Julian pointed out, but he did turn back towards the direction they were going. Balthazar knows we are headed to the beach. Damon tapped his temple.
Ah, yeah. Of course, you and Balthazar can talk to each other telepathically, like we can.
There was a pause, and then Julian, looking rather shamefaced, admitted,
I'm sort of jealous that he can do that with you. I thought it'd be only you and me.
Damon leaned down and kissed Julian's nearest temple. It is not the same. Nothing could ever be the same as what we share. Julian colored, and then, looking chuffed, said,
Good. I'm not going to deny that I'm psyched you feel that way.
It is the truth. Julian beamed again. As they came into more populated areas, he lightly shielded Julian's mind from all the minds around them. He increased that shielding as Julian pinched the top of his nose as if he had a headache coming on. His fledgling looked up at him gratefully.
The voices are getting louder,
Julian explained. Damon nodded. That makes sense. We are around Iros himself. You would key into his powers first.
I really don't want to read people's minds.
I know you do not.
And you know why, too, don't you?
Julian's gaze was on him again. Of course.
So why? Tell me.
It is not a magician's trick. Damon laughed, but then he felt how serious Julian was about knowing. Ah, I see that you are not sure why yourself. Do you want to know the truth? Julian nodded.
Well, I would say always, but maybe not.
That is wise. Damon rubbed his thumb over the back of Julian's hand. But in this case, you need not fear the truth. It is not out of some terrible motive. You don't wish to read minds because you fear it will dim your good view of people. You would rather think the best of them.
Yeah, that's likely true. Though it means I really don't think people's real selves are all that nice, doesn't it? I just discovered about myself that I've been shut off from people for a long time. More shut off than Christian. Both of us have been in the bunker together.
It is understandable. You lost people in your early life. You do not want to experience that pain again, Damon guessed. They were crossing a busy street when a car blew a red light and was about to careen into a group of young women ahead of them. Damon moved. He brought the three women himself and Julian to the opposite sidewalk, and the car flew by without causing any damage. There were shouts and honks from many horns, but no one had gotten hurt.
What the?
Julian looked shell-shocked. The young women were as well. One of them with dark hair and eyes turned to Damon and grasped his free hand in hers.
Thank you. You saved us. How did you?
But she got no farther. Nor did the man who had pulled over his car, who had seen Damon's impossible save. Nor did the people on the opposite sidewalk who had seen it all happen. For Damon sent a wave of power out that touched all of their minds. They now remembered him saving the girls, but it had been merely pushing them out of harm's way, not teleporting them onto the sidewalk. You are most welcome. Go, enjoy your evening, and think no more about this, he told the young woman with the dark hair and eyes. She nodded, much like a person under hypnosis, and she and her friends went on their way. Within half a block, they were laughing and talking normally again. The man who had pulled over got back in his car, feeling kindly about strangers who risked their lives, but he too was back to thinking about his own situation before he had driven a block. Julian watched him out of narrowed eyes.
Balthazar did something like that at the Blood Den. It's amazing that the two of you can just make people remember something that isn't true. I'm sort of wondering, since Christian and I have lived in the same town as Balthazar for all our lives, that it hasn't happened to us once or twice. I think we just met him, but how can I be sure?
Damon had a momentary rush of jealousy about Balthazar being near his Julian before him. Knowing his penchant for pretty young men, and the two of you in particular, I have no doubt he has.
I'm going to ask him. Or better yet, I'll ask Arceus. Balthazar might try to lie a little.
Julian laughed. He will definitely lie, Damon sighed.
I guess I should be glad that Balthazar is so good at affecting minds, considering...
Julian ducked his head.
Considering he's going to do that to Elena.
Yes, Damon smiled.
Will he make her forget that Heath ever existed, or what?
Balthazar likely wouldn't erase Heath's existence. That would cause too much cognitive dissonance, especially with an Iros bloodline vampire, as she would read the confusion in people's minds immediately. and Balthazar was not yet capable of weaving memories for all vampires' minds at once, so it would likely just be a lessening of her grief. Perhaps Balthazar would even make her angry with Heath for what he had done. Turning grief into rage was easier. He told Julian as much. Julian nodded, but he was still upset. His fledgling blamed himself for Elena's reaction to him.
Since you're listening to this, there's a good chance that you love audiobooks. I do too, which is why I make sure that every book I have on Amazon also has an audiobook. This is, in fact, how I met Edward and Hannah, two of the actors for Everdark. Edward and Hannah narrate my Cinders and Ashes series, which is a gay high fantasy romance with fae, very loosely inspired by Cinderella. This is by far the most popular of my audiobook series, just because they're so good. I'll put a link to the first audiobook in the notes.
Julian, what has happened with Elena is not your fault,
That's not true. I asked you to protect Christian and me.
Julian said.
I knew that you'd have to hurt him, at least, if not kill him. So I am responsible.
They would have killed you and Christian without hesitation. I assure you that you are spending far more time thinking and mourning Heath than he would have ever done for you. Damon ran a hand through Julian's dark hair.
Probably. I don't know. I've just never been responsible for someone's death before. Not even tangentially,
He admitted, and stretched out his neck for more petting, which Damon was happy to oblige. There will be many new things to you in this second life, Julian, Damon advised him, challenging things. Julian bit his lower lip as they crossed into a tree-lined avenue that led to a set of wide stairs down to the beach. He could already see the silvered sand beach ahead of them and the water that looked velvety black. He took a deep breath. He felt better already. The buzz of fear about losing Julian was tamping down, but he felt his fledgling was still worried. Not about Elena, though.
I made you look weak, didn't I? When I begged you not to kill her.
Julian's shoulders slumped.
I didn't think...
You reacted. Understandable. We are both new to this, Damon answered, squeezing Julian's hand. They had reached the stairs that led down to the beach. It was mostly empty. There was a couple, however, lying on a beach blanket, arms wrapped around each other, the smell of their lovemaking still staining the air. Damon's stomach grumbled. He would definitely have to feed more tonight. This couple would be a good start. His predator's mind immediately started a plan of attack, but his fledgling was still upset. He would handle that first, the couple second.
How should I have handled it? Taken you aside? Your mind was closed to me.
Julian said the last with a slightly anguished look. Damon grimaced. Julian had tried to reach him over their bond repeatedly, but he had been too filled with fear-based rage to respond. Even now, he kept Julian at a distance as scenarios of seeing him hurt or killed raced through Damon's mind like a squirrel chasing its own tail. I am sorry. I should not have done that, but my thoughts were jumbled. My emotions were out of control. He stopped walking as they were now just above the reach of the waves. He cupped Julian's face in his. It would have hurt you to have our minds touch at that moment. Julian searched his face and his mind for a lie, but found none. Julian buried his face against Damon's chest. His hot breath gushed over Damon's skin. He kissed the top of Julian's head again and again, smelling and tasting him with those kisses. Julian's arms wrapped around him as if Damon was a large teddy bear he wanted to squish against him for comfort. The Vampire King smiled and laughed softly to himself. He had never been anyone's teddy. More kisses, though, had his stomach rumbling again. Julian drew his head back to meet his gaze. A crooked smile was on his fledgling's face.
You're hungry.
Yes. Julian turned his head towards the couple, who were giggling and talking softly to one another.
And I see you found some dinner.
I have. Would you like to help me?
Help you what?
Julian turned a confused expression towards him. Hunt them. Julian's eyes widened. He opened his lips, likely to say no, as his little hero did not like to attack the innocent. But then he firmed his resolve and nodded. He understood that he would have to learn how to do this eventually. Not for some time, but still, eventually. Besides, It was fun to teach his clever fledgling.
So how do we do this?
Julian rubbed his hands together. Damon cupped his chin. First, we do not look like we're hunting them. He leaned down and kissed the young man full on the lips. His fledgling's expression went from anxious to slightly dazed. Follow my lead.
Okay, sounds good.
You'll find that hunting has a natural rhythm, Damon explained as he had them saunter down the beach towards the couple. They looked like a couple as well, but just out for a late-night stroll. Now I know that you are concerned about hurting innocent people.
Yeah, a bit.
Damon let his lips linger on Julian's cheek and dragged them over his jaw. Julian's breathing quickened and his heart raced. The next section of the podcast has been abridged. Being fed from is pleasurable.
You've said that.
Very pleasurable.
I don't know if I want you to give anyone else that much pleasure.
Julian said dryly. Damon tipped his head back and laughed loudly. The couple's eyes were drawn to them. He knew the man felt annoyed that they were being interrupted, but this was a public place, though he was right that it was a very large beach and they could go elsewhere. The woman thought they were an adorable couple.
They know we're here. That guy is not pleased,
Julian said worriedly, though he kept a smile on his face. Remember what I did to the people on the street before? Julian nodded. Let me show you a subtler way of doing it, Damon suggested. Now he could have simply made the couple fall asleep and stay asleep while he fed. That would have been a workmanlike way to go about it. He explained as much to Julian.
Let me guess, that's not a challenge?
Julian let out a small chuckle. Correct. Stalking prey is part of the experience, Damon said with relish. In order to comply with YouTube community guidelines, the next section of the podcast has been abridged.
We shouldn't leave them here. Someone might hurt them,
Julian said with a frown. Damon felt a wave of affection for his fledgling, but a little sadness too. Julian would learn that they could not save everyone, but for now, he would do his best not to break that to his impressionable beloved. We won't, Damon assured him. We'll watch over them while they sleep. Why don't we take that swim? Julian looked out at the velvety black water, and a smile curled his lips.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that.
Join us next time for episode 63, Enemy Mine.
One thing to note about all my audiobooks is that they are not censored, unlike the public Everdark podcast episodes, because they aren't publicly available. Audible doesn't require the Disney-safe editing that we all have to do here. I don't write a ton of sexy scenes in the Cinders and Ashes series, since it's romantic fantasy adventure, but there are some hot moments, and Edward does an amazing job with them. And as always, you can get the Everdark uncensored audiobooks from the Wraith Rain shop. They are not on Amazon, the Wraith Rain shop as well. Look in the show notes down below for the link.
The Everdark podcast by X Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thillis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing. Last on Everdark, Damon and Julian went to the beach to feed and swim, but truthfully, Damon needed to cool down as his anger at Elena for attacking Julian burned hot as the sun. Now, we turn back to Balthazar. Everdark, Episode 63, Enemy Mine. What do you mean that you're going swimming? Balthazar sent to Damon when he realized that neither the Vampire King nor his fledgling were in the house. The Callie are coming here to meet you tonight, and the Mirror likely as well. What am I going to tell them? I'm sure you can handle it, Iros. You are so good with people, Damon responded with a lilt of laughter in his voice. Besides, I am in no mood to entertain. Balthazar winced. He looked to where Ridley was closing Elena's door behind her. He felt a mixture of anger, pity, and helplessness. He understood Elena's pain. If Christian was taken from him, he would have done far worse than Elena to the person who had caused his second death. He wouldn't have cared if they were a king or a commoner. He would have his revenge. But Heath's second death had been necessary, and Damon was going to bring him back if he could. And Elena had tried to hurt Julian. She should have been given her second death, but Damon had held back. Maybe he shouldn't have, Balthazar thought, but then sent to Damon. I understand. I'll hold him off until... For a moment, Balthazar could see through the Vampire King's eyes, and he glimpsed a quite beautiful sight. Julian, completely naked, running into the inky black sea, tossing a smile of challenge over his shoulder at Damon. Balthazar pinched the top of his nose and shook his head. Damon and Julian would not be back any time soon. Until you return, Balthazar finished dryly. You will do wonderfully, I'm sure. The Kali, after all, want to ally with your house as much as meet me, Damon chuckled. But already Balthazar knew he had lost the Vampire King's full attention. Go have fun, Balthazar said with a sigh and closed out their connection. He didn't want to catch a glimpse of the frolicking. He wished he had grabbed Christian and headed for the beach before Damon and Julian had. Then the Vampire King would have had to have played host instead of him. Speaking of Christian, Balthazar glanced down the hallway. His fledgling had gone to speak with his mother. She was still upset about Elena. Unfortunately, Elizabeth was proving Damon in some ways right about human and vampire morality not mixing well. If only they could have hid some of that stuff from her. Luckily, Henry had been with Arceus discussing history. He was trying to calm his wife down. Not having seen what happened was making Henry more malleable in terms of thinking that it wasn't as big a deal as she was making it out to be. He wasn't altogether happy that they were using this blindness of Henry's to influence Elizabeth. Not that she was buying it, but he saw that Christian was in the hallway on his own. He opened his mouth to call to his fledgling, but then he stopped himself as he saw that Christian was staring at something intently in one of the darkened, empty bedrooms. His fledgling was taut as a bow. His eyes were wide with fear. Balthazar flew to Christian's side and immediately placed himself between his fledgling. What's wrong? What do you see? Balthazar demanded to know. But before Christian answered, he headed into the room, switching on the light, even though his vampiric vision didn't require it. But night often played tricks even on those familiar with it, and scanning the bedroom. There was no one there. He did not smell anything untoward either, but he checked the closet, bathroom, and even under the bed. But no one and nothing was there. He turned around to see Christian standing on the threshold, arms crossed over his chest, still looking afraid. Christian. Balthazar reached out to him, and to his surprise and pleasure, his fledgling rushed into his arms. He held Christian tightly against him and ran a hand up and down his spine. It's okay. It's all right. You're safe. Who was it? And then, of course, he knew. Was it David?
I must be imagining him.
Christian's voice was muffled against his sweater. No, I do not think so. Balthazar sighed. It undoubtedly has to do with you being a speaker to the dead. Evidently, you can more than just hear them and talk to them, but see them as well.
You can't block that, can you?
Christian looked up at him hopefully. Balthazar opened his mouth but then shook his head. Not without completely scrambling your brain.
That doesn't sound like a solution.
Christian frowned. No, we need to talk to Damon. Maybe he has experience with this. I'm sure that there's something in the Everdark. I'm sure his city has a library, Balthazar pointed out. There's actually supposed to be immense knowledge in Nightvallen, so don't give up hope. We'll find a solution. He squeezed Christian. His fledgling was still trembling slightly. Balthazar brushed his lips over Christian's temple. Is he still here? Balthazar asked.
No.
Christian answered with a shake of his head. The moment you see him again, let me know. I will have words with him, Balthazar murmured. Christian laughed.
I don't think he'll be afraid even of you. He's dead. You can't hurt him.
I'll find a way, Balthazar said grimly. Or maybe I'll sick one of our new Calais friends on them. Christian's eyebrows rose.
Maybe they could help. I mean, they control the dead, right?
Balthazar nodded slowly. The leader of the House Terrarian is coming here tonight. Her name is Lizette. From the grapevine, I've heard she's very old, perhaps alive before the war. If anyone would have experience with a speaker, it might be her.
But I hear a but in there.
Christian smiled at him. You read me too well. Balthazar smiled back. But 2 things. 1, there's always a cost to such help. Outside of one's house, and definitely outside of one's bloodline, that cost is substantial. Not that I wouldn't pay whatever it took to protect you, but the cost is not monetary. It would be—
Everyone knows how good you are at changing minds.
Christian interrupted.
They'd asked you to do something that you might not want to do.
Don't worry about me. My morals are flexible. He smiled with just a trace of wryness in it.
You aren't as bad as you paint yourself.
Christian objected. No, I'm quite a bit worse. You just haven't seen it yet. You see, when we first came here and had nothing, I did whatever I had to do, and truthfully, I would again. But things are good, so I can be more honorable, Balthazar explained.
I don't want you to have to do something dishonorable for me.
Christian leaned against his chest, seeking comfort, and Balthazar couldn't help but feel a warmth at this. Christian was not one to show he needed someone, but his fledgling needed him and was reaching for him. I would do anything for you, I'm afraid. That just can't be helped. I'm a complete and hopeless romantic, Balthazar said flippantly, even though it was true. Christian turned and put a gentle hand on his lapel.
You really are. But seriously, I don't want you to compromise yourself. We'll find another way.
Which brings me to my second reason for not wanting to involve anyone else other than Damon. If people know you're a speaker, Balthazar flattened his lips. Speakers are so rare that I thought they were a myth. Lizette will see you as a prize.
Then we won't tell her. I can deal with this. Deal with David.
Christian frowned but shook himself.
I'm not a child any longer, and he's a ghost. He can do nothing but haunt me.
But Balthazar hated that David could do even that. No matter what Christian said, it was clear that this man still could hurt his fledgling, dead or not. There was a knock on the door to the bedroom, and Arceus was standing there in long black robes with silver trim, looking apologetic.
House Terrarian is here.
Arceus explained. New robes? Balthazar tilted his head to the rather fancy attire the confessor was wearing. Arceus actually blushed. He smoothed a hand down the front of them.
I thought it was appropriate to create some new robes that honoured King Damon, and were different and separate from those I wore before.
The urge to tease you is huge, but I understand the feeling, Balthazar admitted.
You are his best friend, as well as his closest advisor.
Arceus crossed his arms at the wrists behind his back.
I would hope you would approve.
I do, though our beloved king is playing hooky. You and I have to entertain them until he returns. If he returns, we might have to provide rooms, Balthazar said.
Of course. Our king is allowed some time to himself, especially after—
Arceus didn't finish the sentence.
If you would like me to handle Elena, I will—
Why should you do it?
Because, as the house's confessor, I should have known her pain and intentions. I knew of one, but not the other.
Arceus lowered his head.
Even being able to read minds does not mean you can foretell the future.
Christian pointed out.
No, but I can.
Sophia said from behind Arceus. Yes, you can. Sophia, why didn't you warn us that this was going to happen? Balthazar asked sternly. But he didn't really expect her to provide them with a blow-by-blow of what was going to happen. Just the telling of it would change things.
You understand why. Besides, I don't see everything, just the important things.
She did that little sway dance. So that's why I'm uneasy seeing you now. An important thing is coming, isn't it? Balthazar asked grimly. She grinned at him.
You're doing so well, Balthazar. Don't worry. You're going to do even better.
Don't swell his head,
Arceus cautioned her. She just giggled, totally unrepentant, while Balthazar swelled his chest. Christian gave him an exasperated look and patted his chest.
Let's go greet House Terrarian,
Christian said. The four of them went to the front room, where their guests were waiting for them. There were 5 Calais vampires present. Balthazar recognized all of them. Vaguely, the corpse powder-spiked alcohol had made it all a little hazy. Yes, he had made all of them House Ravenscroft and Damon's allies, but the details were, well, he didn't remember much of that night. Their leader was especially surprising. She was a young woman, really no more than a girl in terms of looks. She had that same Calais fairness that all of them had, with white blonde hair and almost colorless eyelashes and eyebrows. She was pretty and doll-like, until you looked into her eyes, and then realized that no one would want to play with her.
Sophia!
Lizette's voice was high and sweet, but still cutting. Her eyes narrowed.
Still looking for your forever home?
Balthazar frowned. She made Sophia sound like some pet that needed a place to stay. It wasn't Sophia's fault that almost all of the seer vampires had been wiped out after the war. They were simply too dangerous. Sophia's eyes had narrowed, and she had said,
Lisette, still looking for respect?
Lizette's pale skin flushed. The two of them glared at one another with undisguised hatred. But then the expression had washed off of Lizette's face like it had never been, and she let out a soft, breathy laugh as she patted her pale blonde hair.
When one has power and a house to wield, one has all the respect one needs,
she said to Sophia with a sharp-as-a-razor-blade smile.
But when one is alone, one must count on the kindness of strangers.
Sophia is not a stranger here.
Arceus had interjected, a frown so deep on his face that it looked like grand canyons had appeared rather than wrinkles.
She is an honored member of our house.
Sophia beamed at Arceus. She laid her head against the confessor's broad chest.
You are the absolute best confessor. I am so glad to be part of a house with such a wonderful spiritual advisor.
Arceus blushed for the second time that day. He patted Sophia's arm.
You're too kind, my dear.
I'm just speaking the truth, confessor. You are the spiritual head of King Damon's church,
she said. It was Arceus's turn to look a little wide-eyed. She patted his arm this time. Lizette's silver eyes had widened as she watched and listened to this exchange, but she inclined her head and murmured,
My apologies. I am so used to her sponging off the kindness of others, I had no idea she'd been accepted into House Ravenscroft as a full member.
You might like The Vampires Club, which is one of my book series on Amazon. It's gay vampire romance, but it has nothing to do with Everdark. Here's the summary. Find the wolf. What is that supposed to mean? Those are the words Lucas Daniels hears before stumbling through the brass doors of the elegant Club Diavel, a club that seems to appear out of nowhere. The club is his last hope of getting a job to escape his predatory stepfather's home. Who would dare enter a vampire's sanctuary uninvited? Count Constantine the Wolf, Volk, may be weakened by a curse, but he is still a primal predator. And when he sees a young man venture into his club, bypassing all of his magical and physical protections, more than just his curiosity is aroused. Is there more to this meeting than simple chance? The series is complete, and although it's 7 books, they're novellas that move pretty fast and pack in a lot of plot. I'll post a link to the series in the notes.
In fact, they had not yet gone through the ceremony that would induct Sophia as one of their full-time members. But that was not because Balthazar was adverse to doing it. There simply had not been any time. But Lizette's acidic words to their newest member made it clear to him that he had to make the time sooner rather than later. Though Sophia was quite certain that her mistress was alive and would be rescued, she seemed to still want to be part of his house. She was a useful addition, if nothing else. Balthazar moved in to speak to the doll-like Lisette with a smile on his face. It was only slightly forced. We are all friends here now. There is no need for apologies. But I'm sure you won't make the same mistake again with Sophia. I don't take kindly to people speaking to members of my house like that, as I'm sure you don't either. Suddenly, Sophia was wrapping her arms around his chest and saying,
You are the best lord ever, Balthazar. I am so glad to be serving you.
He smiled and said, Thank you, Sophia, but we must not keep our guests standing in the front hall. Please, won't you follow me? I believe the staff has made one of the sitting rooms comfortable for us to speak. Lisette gave him a small smile and inclined her head once more.
You are gracious and charming, as all have said of you, Lord Ravenscroft.
Please, call me Balthazar, and may I call you Lisette? He asked, not exactly happy to lose the honorifics yet, but it seemed appropriate.
Of course.
She told him with another of those smiles. They led the contingent of Calais vampires into one of the intimate sitting rooms. There were 2 couches facing one another, with a fire crackling on the wall to their left. Blood-laced wine, spiced with honey and herbs, was set out along with glasses for everyone. Lisette sat alone on the couch while her people stood behind her like 5 white marble statues. Christian and he took the opposite couch, while Sophia perched on the arm, and Arceus stood by the side of the fireplace, elbow resting on the mantel as he stroked his beard and watched everything. The fire popped and crackled warmly. Lisette held her hands out towards it. They were small and pale like starfish in the deep ocean. Everything about her was delicate, almost fragile. William, Sophia, and now Lisette were some of the few true child vampires that he had run across in his second life. Their lives were far more fraught now than in the past, where children were considered simply small adults. Yet here Lisette was, as lady of her house. Still, he bet that this modern world tested her patience. He could feel some of it wafting off of her even now, a sense of dissatisfaction. But perhaps that was just her lust for power. There was never enough for people like herself. Her childlike frame simply increased that frustration. We are honored to have you here, Lisette, Balthazar began. The friendship between our houses is
Something that you have contrived through that brilliant mind gift of yours.
She waved a hand through the air. Balthazar froze. She should have no memory of her mind being tampered with. He had given her a logical chain of reasoning to come to the conclusion that friendship between their houses was wise, and that Damon was their true ruler. So how and why was she saying this?
Do not worry, Balthazar. I assure you that the memories you implanted are brilliant.
She told him with another wave of that pale hand. So brilliant that you realize that they are there. He decided not to lie about it. Another wave.
You do not understand. Your work is completely logical, so perfect.
Her expression hardened.
But the Calais do not have friends. Yet you are mine. I feel it, down to my bones.
He gave her a smile that was more of a grimace and shook a finger at her. You're right. I overdid it. But you were trying to kill us, and Damon sprung it on me that I was the one to handle things.
The fact that you could accomplish this at all shows that you are a worthy ally, potentially even a friend.
She said the last word as if it had a strange taste. Maybe it did. She was right. The Calais did not have friends. It was a better choice than killing all of you. He met her gaze and let the truth seep into his voice. That was an option, you know. Lisette regarded him for long, long moments. Finally, she inclined her head.
Yes, I see it was. But why not kill us?
Because Damon is the king of all vampires, not just the Iros vampires, all of us. You have been misled.
Arceus told her gravely.
By the Order?
Her delicate eyebrows lifted.
By everyone.
Sophia answered. That seemed to displease her. Whether it was the fact that all had lied to them or that it was Sophia telling her this was unclear. But she said,
Tell me more. As we are allies, I can only assist you fully if I am fully informed.
Balthazar and Arceus's gazes met. He wished that Damon was here. Should they tell her of Calais being alive? It was better they did. He needed to read her mind as she discovered the immortal of her bloodline still existed. It would tell him much. He gave a nod to Arceus. He found that people automatically believed a confessor, even if they were as jaded could be.
Callie is alive.
Arceus said. Balthazar listened closely to her mind. At first, her mind was blank. It wasn't a conscious blankness, but a shocked one. Then, to his surprise, anger filled Lisette with a touch of disdain. Not at them, but at Callie.
Is that to shock me?
She asked with a dismissive wave this time. It did, Balthazar said as he leaned forward and started pouring the blood-laced wine into delicate crystal balloons. Lisette picked up one of the wine glasses that was bigger than her hand and took a delicate sip. She nodded in approval.
Not as good as ours, but very acceptable.
Her gaze met his.
I heard you enjoyed your wine. I'm having a case sent here.
Balthazar couldn't help but touch his temple, where he felt the memory of the hangover the corpse powder-infused alcohol had given him. You are definitely the masters of that liquor. Thank you for the gift. She nodded and took another sip.
Why tell me about Callie? You have no fear of the immortals. You follow the greatest of them.
Callie is a different matter. They are not happy that Damon has returned, Balthazar explained.
No, I would imagine not. Damon threatens the whole order of things.
Lisette drained her glass and stuck it out for more. Balthazar filled it again.
Well, you don't need to worry that we will have any loyalty to Callie.
Why not?
Arceus asked, frowning. She gave him one of those small smiles that Balthazar was beginning to understand a little of.
Because we aren't sentimental.
No, you aren't. And you don't want to be subjugated again. Balthazar read from her mind.
Indeed we do not. King Damon is not interested in us as the immortal Callie would be. He has other interests. Even now Damon plays in the water while we are here, not interested in having us bow and scrape. Instead, he has us speak together, making our own plans. That is good,
she said. Christian leaned forward and asked,
I'm still unclear why you aren't angry about Balthazar changing your memories, making you like us.
She laughed, but not unkindly.
A very good question. But you must understand that the very fact that Balthazar can do this means he's a good ally to have. He does not want to subjugate us either. Not to say he could not be a fierce enemy if we were to go against him, but I sense...
She turned her ancient eyes on him again.
I sense he truly wants an alliance, and I am happy to give it. You never would have sought it on your own,
Sophia said, her voice neutral. But there must have been a dig in there that Balthazar couldn't hear. A history, perhaps. Balthazar was annoyed at first as he saw anger flash across Lisette's face, but then she laughed again.
You are right, Sophia. I have gotten to the top on my own, and had always thought to remain there on my own. But things have changed,
Lisette said. Sophia nodded soberly.
They have.
Balthazar noted then that Christian was looking anxiously into one of the dark corners. He looked and saw no one, of course, but Lisette turned and looked as well. She stiffened and then turned back to them.
You can see him, can't you, little bird?
Lisette asked Christian. His fledgling's eyes darted to her and then back to the corner.
Yes, as can you, evidently.
Of course. I am a Callie vampire, but you are not so. So how can you... Oh...
Her silver eyes widened hugely.
It cannot be. But it is. Perhaps more than your mind control gift has led us to be friends, Balthazar.
Oh? How so? Balthazar was stiff as a statue. David was in the goddamned room and he could not do anything about it. He couldn't even see the bastard.
Your fledgling is a speaker to the dead, is he not?
Lisette asked, and as soon as she said these words, the Callie vampires that had accompanied her but remained still as stone reacted by straightening. All their eyes went to Christian, who shrank from their appraising. But then Christian straightened. He leaned towards her.
I am. Do you know something about my kind?
She smiled.
Yes, I do. You are rarer than diamonds.
I do not see why the Caliph would care about a speaker. You are able to speak to the dead any time you like, Balthazar admitted, but she shook her head.
We can speak to the souls that are newly dead. If we are there for their deaths, we can steal their souls for our own power. We can resurrect only the bodies of the longer dead, but a speaker can summon any soul they want.
Christian looked alarmed, and then intrigued by this.
Any soul?
Even ones that have passed beyond the veil,
She told him. Christian laced the fingers of his nearest hand with Balthazar's.
I'm only interested in stopping this spirit from haunting me.
She nodded, but instead of saying anything more, she stood up and fished out the largest diamond he had ever seen outside of a museum or a royal's hoard. She walked over to the shadowy corner and extended her hand with the diamond laying in her palm. She whispered words that he should have been able to hear but somehow couldn't. The diamond began to glow all of a sudden, and then the shadows in the corner were reduced. Christian's body grew less rigid all of a sudden. Lisette returned and held out the diamond to his fledgling.
for you.
She said. Christian, though, did not extend a hand to take it.
What is it?
She smiled, looking beautiful and doll-like and terrifying at the same time.
Your enemy.
She reached out and grasped Christian's hand, transferring the diamond into it.
In the palm of your hand.
Join us next time for episode 64, Predators of the Deep.
If you're interested in getting my books for free, and who doesn't like free books, my free book email list is what you should join. Every month, I make 2 books free to download for 5 days, which is the length of time Amazon allows. And I make books from the Vampires Club series free often, since there are 7 of them. Most of my ebooks are also in Kindle Unlimited, so you can borrow them anytime if you have a KU subscription. I'll post the link to the mailing list form in the notes.
The Everdark podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thillis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing. Last on Everdark, Balthazar, Christian, and Arceus had to play host to some of their Cali vampire allies. The Cali vampires almost immediately recognize Christian as a speaker to the dead, and Lisette gives Christian a gift of friendship, David's soul, trapped in a diamond. Now we turn back to Julian and Damon. Everdark, Episode 64, Predators of the Deep. Julian looked over his shoulder to see if Damon was following him into the night-black water of the ocean. He saw the vampire king wade into the sea to his waist before he dove into an oncoming wave and disappeared beneath the surface. The bright moonlight made it hard to track Damon's powerful naked form as he streaked towards Julian like a torpedo. It was only when Julian caught sight of those hands reaching for his ankles that he realized his master was playing shark. Julian twisted around and dove into the water himself just as he felt the brush of Damon's fingertips along his skin. He kicked and rapidly swam into deeper water. He glanced over his shoulder and saw Damon coming after him just by kicking his feet. The Vampire King's arms were tucked tightly against his sides, making him more streamlined. His black hair waved back from his beautiful face. His red eyes glowed like fire in the darkness of the water. He looked wholly beautiful and unearthly. Julian's heart lurched with a mixture of desire and a touch of fear. There was something implacable about Damon in this environment, maybe because his master had not yet chased him before. A smile curled Damon's lips, showing a snippet of sharp white teeth. Damon's fangs were out, and a full-body shiver went through Julian. The next section of the podcast has been abridged. But though he really wanted Damon to catch him, He had to play a little hard to catch, so he increased his speed while the Vampire King cruised after him. The bottom dropped out beneath them closer to shore than Julian anticipated. It went from 10 feet to 20, then 25, then over 30. Julian felt a slight chill, not from the cold of the water, but the thought of being so far out in the ocean at night, without clothes, without any idea of where he was going. But he and Damon were not alone in the deep. Unlike before, when he had scuba dived, Julian could feel all the life around him. He looked to his left just as a school of fish appeared. There were warm sparks of life in the ocean's cold blackness. His eyes were drawn to the seaweed that waved down below. It gave him the impression of flying through the sky over a forest rather than swimming through water over kelp. His keen hearing heard the thump of a heart, and he snapped his head to the side. He thought he saw the shadow of something large swimming through the kelp. He narrowed his eyes, squinting then and realizing that it was a dark purple eel that was almost invisible in the gloom. He found himself studying its long body as it glided through the kelp, and in this moment of inattention, hands curled around his waist. Julian jerked in surprise and then let out a watery laugh. Damon had caught him easily. In order to comply with YouTube community guidelines, the next section of the podcast has been abridged. I am fine, my one. Look around you. What do you see? What do you feel? Julian blinked, but then allowed his senses to spread outwards again.
There's so much life. I can feel the city over there.
He pointed back in the direction they had come. The city seemed to glow with golden and red light. There were simply so many beating hearts there that it overwhelmed him. But the ocean did not have less, only that life was more spread out.
And I can feel the life and death struggle out here. Big fish eating smaller fish. Bigger fish eating the big fish. I can feel the cycle here stronger than the city.
Yes, Damon nodded. There is less distraction down here. It will help you to focus on one thing and block everything else you do not need to know out. Though if you are too narrow, you will miss danger coming your way. Julian's senses had him turning towards several schools of fish, their iridescent scales flashing in the moonlight that made it down beneath the waves. Not only were there eels, but there were other predators too. Fish with powerful hinged jaws swam by them, wiggling powerful tails, ever looking for something to eat. He caught sight of a curl of a tentacle, visible for just a moment below him, and then it and a bright yellow fish were gone. He turned to Damon in amazement. The Vampire King was watching his face. There was nothing in the ocean that could hurt them like the land could, except the sunlight. We could always dive deeper than the sunlight could reach and be safe there, Damon told him. I hear voices in the deep, perhaps more and different beings to know. They hung suspended in this strange silvery black place, a part of it and yet utterly separate. Julian's hand slid around Damon's neck again, sheltering in his strength. The smile on his face was so broad that it almost hurt.
I thought I'd seen things before I met you, Damon, but now I realize that my experiences have not even scratched the surface of what's out there. And that's only here on Earth. But what about the Everdark? I can't wait to go back there and see everything there is in those vast forests and cities.
Damon smiled, leaning in and pressing their foreheads together. I will show you everything. It will all seem new to me as it is new to you. Sharing it with someone is so very different.
Did you and the other immortals do things together?
Julian wondered.
You seem so free and easy with Balthazar. There doesn't seem to be a formality of you being king and him being, well, he's a lord, I guess. A loyal retainer?
Eiros was always my friend first. I could be honest with him. I often went to him for his advice. His ability to read minds was greater than mine in some ways because of his understanding of people, Damon explained. Eiros was fascinated with humanity, so he immersed himself in all there was to know about them. He even pretended to be one of them for millennia at a time. He watched civilizations rise and fall, not from afar, but as part of them. I could never fully hide myself, not even with the mirror ability. All felt, in the end, that I was not like them.
You are not like anyone else, that's for sure. That's not a bad thing, but I imagine it's been sort of lonely being so set apart.
Julian realized. It is the burden of being who and what I am. But then he was smiling again, hugely. But it is a light burden, especially now that I have you. I will never be alone again.
No, you won't. You're stuck with me.
Julian grinned back and felt something in his heart lighten.
I realized something about myself recently. I'm doing that a lot.
You are young. You will learn many things.
Don't look so smug.
Julian laughed, but then sobering, he said,
It's just really been brought to my attention how cut off I've been, and haven't even known it. After I lost my parents, I didn't want to care about anyone else enough to miss them if they went too.
I wish I could give them back to you, Julian. It makes me angry that I was sleeping when they were taken from you. I remember their minds. Damon's expression grew distant as he remembered them, and Julian caught glimpses of his parents through those memories. He saw them climbing over the many broad marble steps of Nightvallen. He saw his mother standing in front of one of the many freezers, copying it into a journal, tapping her lower lip with her pencil as she pondered what it meant. There was an expression on her face, telling Julian she was utterly engrossed. Her whole being was involved in trying to figure out what Nightvallen was, who had occupied it, and what they were like. Then he saw his father, using his climbing equipment to get to one of the many stone balconies. He saw his father's muscles strain as he lifted himself over the top of the stone balustrade, but he was stymied by the balcony doors being closed there too, just like they had been in the lower level. But these had frosted glass panels that he peered through. Julian knew his father was considering whether he would risk damaging the glass. But though his father was stymied, there was no look of frustration on his handsome, weathered face. Instead, he looked electrified. He would find a way in. He would understand everything about the inhabitants. Julian could feel that coming off his father in waves.
They were so happy in Nightvallen, weren't they?
Julian's mind voice was soft. I remember noting their intelligence and happiness as they discovered new things. Even though I was only barely aware of them, their minds were bright and their souls adventurous. Damon said, "Come, let us look around this world before the chill becomes too much for you." The two of them swam down into the kelp. Damon would move some of the fronds so that Julian could see the teeming life all around them. Seaweed caressed their bare sides. Curious fish came up and stared at Julian's face. He wondered what they thought he and Damon were. Humans? Other fish? They were not afraid. Curiosity drew them nearer and nearer. Damon linked their nearest hands together and urged Julian to swim simply by fluttering his feet. Soon they were cruising through the water like sleek fish themselves. Damon took them out further from the shore. Julian could feel the water deepening below them. Soon, not even his keen vampiric vision could catch any sight of the bottom.
Where are you taking me?
Julian asked. To see something that you've never seen before in real life. To see another predator. Don't you sense her? Damon explained. He slowed them both down and had them tread water. He pointed ahead of them and slightly to the right. Julian realized what Damon wanted him to see when that familiar yet frightening shape appeared at the edge of his vision. It was a large shark, about 8 feet long with a white tip on its topmost fin.
A great white!
Julian lurched backwards, but Damon pressed a hand on the base of his spine to keep him still. Watch, Damon instructed. We are not in danger. Julian's heart was thumping hard and his throat felt tight as he watched the graceful yet deadly form of the shark move through the water almost restlessly. He knew that they never stopped moving, or they would die. And then, coming out of the deep, was a school of fish. They were larger than the ones that he had seen near the shore. Their sides were pure silver, reminding him of silver dollars. He watched in amazement as, with a powerful thrust of her tail, the shark was upon the school. The school of fish started to move in a column, almost like a fish tornado as the shark opened its jaws wide and swallowed several of them whole. The shark dove into the funnel of fish and took her fill over and over again until the school looked depleted. The stragglers streaked away from the sated predator. At that moment, the shark suddenly seemed aware of them and started to swim lazily towards them. Her black eyes looked soulless, even though Julian knew that was not fair. Sharks were made as they were made. There was no morality here, and what they did. They fed, they bred, and they were masters of the ocean for the most part. Julian drew nearer to Damon's body, his back pressed tight against the Vampire King's front as the shark approached.
It's coming this way,
Julian said with more than a trace of unease. Yes, it is curious about us, but we are in no danger, Julian, Damon assured him. Julian would have been holding his breath if he had been breathing as the shark closed the distance between her snout and his bare chest. Then, practically at the last moment, she veered to the right and glided past them within touching distance. In fact, Damon reached out and ran his hand along the shark's side. Julian did so as well. The flesh was both rough and rubbery. He could feel the sheer life in this huge predator. He realized that he could hear the shark's heart and the whoosh of blood through her veins. If he closed his eyes, he could actually taste the blood of the fish she had killed in the water. Faint traces of that kill flowed into his nose and mouth. Hunger suddenly throbbed within him again. He opened his eyes and said,
Balthazar said that we couldn't feed from other beings, just humans. Is that true? Or can you do something different?
If I were limited to humans, I would have died long ago. My existence predates our arrival on this planet, Damon told him. Now Julian's heart beat for a totally different reason. Damon was revealing something about himself which was so rare.
So I could feed from a different species and be okay?
But Damon was shaking his head sadly. Other than myself and humans, you likely would not be able to gain sustenance from other creatures. Though I am basing this only on what I know of other fledglings, not my own, clearly. But it is not something that we should test anytime soon.
I don't want to drink from anyone else other than you anyways. Like I told you on the beach, feeding and intimacy are wound together for me.
The Vampire King's eyes hooded at that moment. We should go in now. I wish to be in bed with you. Julian grinned. They swam back in companionable silence. But then Damon stilled for a moment, and a sense of surprise flowed through him.
What? What is it?
Julian asked him, unable to feel anything strange at first. But then he sensed a vampiric presence on the beach, just 10 feet from where they would be exiting from the waves.
There's a vampire on the beach. I don't recognize him,
Julian admitted. The three of us have not met, though we do know him, or rather, know of him, Damon replied. His voice was neutral.
Who is it?
Damon's red eyes met his. Caemorn Losus. Join us next time for episode 65, Soul in Stone. My dearest acolytes, I regret to inform you that this particular platform's Inquisition has decided that sexy vampire interludes are not within the bounds of community guidelines. Therefore, this episode has been cut to be acceptable to audiences of all ages. Not to worry. If you are interested in hearing the full episode, with all of the steamy parts included, you can purchase a monthly membership at wraithrain.com. Not ready to commit to a monthly membership? Then please visit the shop at wraithrain.com, where the full episodes are available for sale in audiobook format. I wonder just what it is that the community is afraid of hearing. Perhaps something they'd like. The community protests too much, methinks. Last on Everdark, Julian and Damon made love in the ocean. Damon showed Julian the cycle of life in the deep and how it was not so different on the land. But just as they were about to go back to Ravenscroft Manor, Damon realized they had a visitor, Caemorn Losus. Now we turn back to Christian and Balthazar. Everdark, episode 65, Soul in Stone. The diamond sparkled in Christian's hand. It was so beautiful. It felt warm and slick against his fingers, and it held a soul, David's soul.
How is that even possible? A soul in a stone? Impossible. Yet it's true.
It was almost too much to contemplate. Christian had always turned to facts, to science, to provable things. He and Julian had looked all over the world for the unexplainable. Julian had done it to find proof that supernatural beings were real. Christian had done it in order to show that everything had a natural explanation.
But then vampires turned out to be real, and now I'm a speaker to the dead, and David is in my hand.
The diamond flashed at him. He looked closer and thought he saw something moving within it. He jerked back and swallowed. David's soul was in there, something he had scoffed at before. No souls, no heaven, no hell, no going on. Christian had honestly thought that there was nothing, and how ironic was that, considering the gift he had.
Is there a hell?
Christian asked Lisette. And where had that come from? But it was a logical question to ask of someone who could control souls and stick them in gems for seeming amusement. Balthazar stiffened beside him, and Christian felt more than saw Balthazar turn his head to look at him. My fledgling. Balthazar's mind caressed him with the question.
I wondered.
Lisette did not act surprised that he would ask her such a question. Christian licked his lips as he glanced down at the glowing diamond in his hand. David's soul was in there. David's soul.
You wonder why he lingers instead of moving on through the veil.
She guessed at the meaning of her question. He gave a brief nod. Was David afraid of the judgment that awaited him? If there was judgment. He studied Lisette's face and the cullies beside her. What did they know? How much did they see? Were they so distant from even vampires because of what they knew?
He did something terrible. Something so terrible he might fear hell?
Lisette asked. Christian rubbed his hands together, the diamond between them.
Some would say so. But would he?
He did, and he's still running from it, Balthazar said without question. Balthazar reached over and took Christian's hands in his. The diamond flashed between their fingers. He wondered if David objected to being so close to the man that Christian was opening his heart to. He wondered if David felt Balthazar touching him, or more like touching Christian.
Well, you could ask him, or give him the punishment that Balthazar believes he deserves.
Lisette smiled, and she didn't look like a child at all. He should fear damnation for what he's done, Balthazar murmured. He was glaring at the diamond.
Or perhaps Christian fears it for him. Strange that your fledgling is such a forgiving sort.
Lisette settled back down on the sofa opposite them again, drinking the honey-spiced wine.
I'm sure it's nothing you could understand, Lisette. I doubt there has ever been someone who wronged you that you did not destroy.
Sophia said.
True.
She leaned forward and stared at Christian.
Do you want to destroy David? I can teach you how to do that too.
Balthazar's hands tightened over his, and then he was meeting Christian's gaze. You are not responsible for David, Christian, but we should discuss what to do about him later, when our guests have gone. Not in front of her. You don't want her to know your secrets, especially about David, Balthazar warned. This is the hook.
The hook for what?
For whatever she hopes to get out of you.
But knowing is all a part of how I can help him, Balthazar. I need to understand. Just like I need to understand about Callie.
Lisette crossed her legs at the ankles. She was more like a doll than ever before. Balthazar's eyes narrowed as he looked at her. No, you do not. You need to know nothing about this.
As you wish.
She shrugged.
Then I am limited in what I can do, and Christian will, well...
Well, what?
Christian asked.
Speakers don't last. Maybe it's what they see, but mostly it's because they aren't trained properly.
She said with a shrug.
If you don't want Christian to last, then...
You don't know that's true. It's all a rumor. Innuendo, myths, lies. Balthazar growled. We all thought speakers were just stories, like Damon was a story. But it's real, and that means that none of us are experts. Christian stared at Balthazar. He knew why Balthazar did not want him to reveal any of himself to her. It made complete sense. They should be circumspect. He certainly wasn't one to share himself with strangers, let alone dangerous strangers. Yet he wanted to tell her. He wanted to understand how she could have no fear of the dead. There's a price, Christian. Remember that. She is not here out of compassion. She wants something. Balthazar's voice reached him. And I doubt she has anything to give you in return that's worth the price.
But to answer your earlier question, Christian, about heaven and hell,
Lisette turned to him, ignoring Balthazar.
the Calli do not know the answer to that question. We take control of the souls of the newly dead before they've had a chance to cross the veil, so the Calli do not know what is beyond there.
Her hands curled around the wineglass.
But you, as speaker to the dead, can call any spirit to you from beyond the veil. You would be able to get the answer to your question.
Christian blinked. He could call spirits back from beyond the veil. What might they know? Not just about life here on earth, but beyond.
Now you are starting to understand why being a speaker to the dead makes you so rare and valuable.
Lisette nodded as she took in the understanding that must have crossed over Christian's face.
I can call anyone?
He qualified.
Well, some are said to be beyond reach. It is said that some are reborn, but we know nothing for certain, as the last speaker died in the war. So Balthazar isn't wrong when he said that we know little, but we know some things.
She answered.
For example, there are said to be books in Nightfallen written by previous speakers about what they discovered from their conversations with souls. But those books are more for non-speakers. You, after all, will be able to learn whatever you want on your own.
Christian felt something in her mind then. A hunger, really, for knowledge. But it wasn't general knowledge like what he had asked her, but specific. He thought she might want to speak to someone who went beyond.
How can you teach me to control my gift if the last speaker died so long ago and all their knowledge is missing?
Christian pointed out.
The knowledge of how to train a speaker is kept with the Calli bloodline, while the information on what the speakers have seen was kept in the Iros bloodline.
She answered simply. It sounded like the truth, but her mind was almost slippery. He wasn't good enough to truly read her thoughts. Christian cut a glance at Balthazar. His master was staring at her without blinking. He likely knew what she was thinking. He couldn't tell from Balthazar's expression what it was or what he felt about it. Lisette leaned forward, elbows on knees as she asked,
Wouldn't you like to know what lies beyond? Is there a god or gods? Is there meaning and purpose to life? Do souls continue? Are they actually reborn? You could know these things, Christian. You could truly know everything.
Christian stared down into the diamond. Those questions she asked were amazing to contemplate. He would want to know those answers, but weirdly, he wanted to have answers from David first. Sophia stirred from her place on the arm of the sofa, and Christian looked over at her. Her silver eyes were full of sadness and a warning that she made audible when she said,
Lisette, you should tell him about the costs of knowledge. Or would you just encourage him to take the risks so that you could reap the rewards?
Sophia's silver eyes had turned to the other childlike vampire, and there was an utter coldness in them.
But you might find that the answers you seek will leave you even emptier than you are now.
Lisette's shoulders jerked. It was clearly an unconscious movement, one that she wished she had not made. Christian could feel that from her now, yet her mind was smooth like a mirror. It reflected back at Christian, and only for brief seconds could he sense anything of what she was feeling. And it was that hunger again. It was so strong that she could not altogether reel it back into herself.
What do you want to know about what's beyond the veil, Lisette?
He asked. And for a moment, Christian could see Lisette commanding one of the souls she controlled to go through a billowing blue-white veil that glowed with stolen starlight and return with another spirit. But the moment that the soul touched the veil, she lost control of it. She screamed her frustration, sent bones and spellbooks flying off of the tables as she raged, beat her hands bloody as she pounded her fists against the top of stone coffins. But then the smooth, mirror-like image was back.
You want to reach someone on the other side of the veil?
Christian stated and did not ask.
I do. Would you help me reach them?
Lisette asked. No, absolutely not. Balthazar suddenly was standing between him and Lisette. Christian did not ask you to trap David's spirit. He owes you nothing.
I'm only asking for a favour. I am not asking for payment. As you said, I did not make any conditions when I trapped David, did I?
Her faux innocence was marred by her smile.
You call it a favour because you know about Christian's good heart.
Arceus rumbled.
You know by helping him he will want to help you.
Is that such a bad thing? Is that not what friends do for one another? David was causing him distress. I stopped that distress. He sees I have a need. He wants to help satisfy that need.
Lisette looked between the two vampires.
He does not have to.
She focused on him.
I am not asking anything of you, Christian.
Of course you are, Balthazar snapped.
If Christian wishes to help me in return out of his own free will, then that is his business, isn't it? Or are you more like Rowan and believe you have a right to determine what your fledglings do and do not do?
Lisette asked.
How dare you?
Arceus growled. He pushed off of the mantelpiece and practically quivered with indignation.
To compare Balthazar to Rowan is the utmost insult.
Balthazar's eyes were narrowed. It seems that you really don't know what friendship is, Lisette, if you would say these things to me. Christian saw that this potential alliance with the Callie was going in the wrong direction. He glanced over at Sophia. She was looking at him with those wide, sad, doll-like eyes. He had to save things.
Stop! Both of you, stop!
He found himself saying.
It's my decision if I help her or not, Balthazar.
Today, I want to tell you about a completed werewolf romance story called Crimson. This was supposed to be a gay retelling of Little Red Riding Hood with werewolves. It didn't turn out that way, but it is a sweet and sexy tale of romance and found family. Here's the blurb. Gareth, alpha werewolf of the Cold Moon Pack, does not believe in mates. His friend went mad after his mate was killed, so Gareth resists love. But then he meets Jude Connor. Growing up an orphan, Jude experienced human cruelty and trusts no one. Still, he dreams of belonging to someone and being part of a family. Can he bring himself to trust Gareth and the Cold Moon Pack and make that dream a reality? Since the story is shorter at 47 chapters and not part of a larger story world, Crimson is a great place for new members to get started. If you do join us, I really hope you read this story and tell me what you think.
You are just a fledgling. You don't know what you are saying. Balthazar was in full master protective mode now.
Of course I know. And you do too. You want to protect me. You would do anything to protect me.
Christian said. Balthazar's mouth opened and shut. Christian.
I know. Sit. Sit down.
Christian grasped Balthazar's hand and drew him back down on the couch. Balthazar was shaking with suppressed rage and fear. Christian stroked his arms.
It's okay. It's okay. Everything is okay.
Christian soothed. She has no right to ask anything of you. I won't allow you to be hurt again. Do you understand, Christian? Balthazar held his hands, and the diamond felt like it was cutting into Christian's palm. He opened their hands so that they could both see the diamond. He won't be allowed to hurt you any longer. I don't want you going down that path.
But this isn't a choice. This is my path, Balthazar. I'm a speaker to the dead, right?
Their gazes met, and their minds locked. Christian rested their foreheads together. Balthazar's breathing evened out, and he cupped Christian's face before kissing him gently. I don't like her. I don't trust her. This is a bad plan you have, Balthazar said.
But I don't know what my plan exactly is. I want to hear what she has to say, but I think she's the right choice.
Christian said. How do you know that? We need to talk to Damon and—
I don't know how, but it feels right. We'll ask Damon too, but this feels meant.
You're getting to be like Sophia, Balthazar stated, raising an eyebrow. Christian grinned.
Yeah, well, Sophia's been giving me the eye all night. She knows Lizette is here to stay. For a while, anyways.
I won't have this, Christian. But both of them turned towards Sophia, who was smiling at them.
You're so sweet together,
Sophia said.
aren't they, Lisette? Oh, they are something. I'd forgotten. New fledgling, new master. Sensitive. I apologize.
Lizette said with a tight expression. Christian met her gaze.
You push. You don't know any other way to be.
Lizette went still for a moment, as if realizing she had somehow shown him far more of herself than she'd planned. Sophia made a soft humming under her breath. He thought it might be amusement. He wasn't sure. Arceus had settled back against the mantelpiece, but he was still watchful. Balthazar, though he was calmer, was still rigid. His eyes were locked on Christian's. Christian stroked his arms again. Balthazar shook his head, but then sighed. He knew that Christian would do what he would do.
Do you want to learn how to use your gift or not?
Lizette asked.
Can you really teach me?
Christian challenged. But Balthazar was shaking his head. You've got David and this damn diamond, Christian. Let this be the end of it. You don't have to worry about the dead anymore. He is the only one that's bothering you, and now he's taken care of. You need to do nothing else.
You know it doesn't work that way, Balthazar.
Sophia said softly.
Our powers are as much a curse as a blessing. They never go away. They never leave us. They are us.
For you, perhaps. But I can keep Christian safe from this. Balthazar's hold tightened on him. Arceus's forehead furrowed.
We do not keep vampires safe by not having them learn to control their gifts, Balthazar.
Read her mind, Arceus. Balthazar pointed at Lizette's chest. I don't need to see the future to know that this is a really bad idea. I'm not letting Christian step into that darkness and—
She can teach me.
Christian said as he covered one of Balthazar's hands with his own and squeezed it.
I need to learn how to control this.
You don't need to learn to control it. I can control it for you. You can be safe now that David is—
I don't think so.
Christian said.
I love that you want to protect me, but I can't let you do that. It's like my parents who wanted to stop me from ever dating anyone again for fear they'd be like David. In their attempts to protect me, things didn't go so well. I don't want to be afraid of this gift. I want to understand it. I want to master it.
He looked at the diamond again.
The fact that there was a way to trap him is fascinating, but I can't keep him in here forever.
Oh, you can.
Lizette told him with a grin.
He's stuck in there forever if you want it. You can take him out and do whatever you like and put him back again. I'll show you how. He's the one that's chosen to remain here after all. What happens to him is, well, exactly what he deserves. Isn't it, Christian?
You sense something about him?
Christian asked her, curious.
I don't have to sense anything. All I had to do was look at his face. That wretched look of desire, guilt and shame and lust. It was all there. Souls like this, that remain in order to hold on to another person, tells me there's something not quite right about them. You see, true love lets go. Even common love lets go. But obsession and insanity, they remain. And he's got all of that inside of him. I'm curious about your story, if you'd ever tell me.
Again, you've shown no reason you need to know the story to teach him how to let David in and out of the diamond, Balthazar growled, and his eyes glowed like fire. There will be no psychological games, Lizette. Not with my fledgling, not with my people.
No, psychological games are your forte, Balthazar.
She smiled, but there was no amusement there. Christian leaned forward, the diamond between his fingers.
So, how do I let him out? And how do I put him back?
A drop of your blood on the diamond will release him. Binding him back in the stone will require that, plus your intention he be bound.
She said.
Sounds easy enough.
It can be,
She said.
but you best try it for the first time while I am here.
Christian let his fangs extend. He brought his thumb up to the right one, intent on puncturing his skin and putting a drop of blood onto the shiny surface of the diamond. Balthazar grasped his wrist. "Don't, Christian. He's in there. He doesn't need to be let out," Balthazar said.
If it was Ronan here, what would you do?
Christian asked. "If I had Ronan there," Balthazar let out a sharp laugh, "I would kill him again. But you cannot kill a spirit. I do not know how to torture spirits."
Oh, I do, and I can show Christian.
Lizette said brightly. Christian shot her a look.
I don't want to torture him. I just want to talk to him. To understand and make him understand.
As you wish.
She said.
But I wouldn't expect much the first few times you release him. Spirits who linger are devious.
"Nothing compared to Eiros bloodline vampires," Balthazar said tightly. "Perhaps you should let me deal with him in terms of the questioning, Christian."
Maybe I will.
Christian smiled at him. He didn't know if he'd actually be able to speak to David. Though, not now. Just let him out and stuff him back in again, Balthazar suggested again, not wanting to show anyone his secrets.
Right, of course. Will Balthazar be able to see David now?
Christian asked Lizette.
Yes, now that he's been trapped.
She answered. He suddenly felt Sophia's hand on his arm.
Sometimes the future is in the past.
He nodded jerkily. He felt conspicuous. Everyone was watching him. The Calais reminded him of snowbirds on a line. Though he had no reason to believe that this was against Arceus's religion, he definitely felt like this was sacrilegious.
David is right here, trapped, like he trapped me.
He met Balthazar's eyes. He let out a breath. He bit into his thumb, feeling the prick, and then he tasted the copper on his tongue. When he drew his thumb back, there was a bright red bead of crimson. He turned his thumb to the side so that the pooling blood dripped off and landed on the center of the diamond. He expected it to sit there or something, but it didn't. His blood disappeared in a flash of light, and suddenly David was there, 2 feet away. He was staring with such intentness at Christian that Christian actually pulled back against the couch. His breathing filled his ears so he couldn't hear anything else. He recognized the outfit David was wearing, the faded jeans and untucked button-down shirt with the mixture of red checks. The sleeves were rolled up to David's elbows, showing off his muscular forearms with the dusting of dark hair. Christian's gaze followed them down to his hands. For an academic, David's hands had a well-used look to them. He often woodworked in his garage. His fingers showed the nicks, cuts, and roughness. It had been erotic to have those hands on his untouched skin. "You thought his hands made him more adult, different from you." Balthazar's voice was suddenly in his head, holding him lightly, keeping him safe.
I did. They were in adult's hands.
Balthazar's hands were suddenly covering both of his. His hands were so different from David's. Not less mature, just different, better. Christian laced their fingers together as he stared up at David. He wanted David to see.
I've moved on past you. You need to move on past me.
But David stepped closer, and Christian's breath began to frost the air.
Interesting.
Lizette said.
He's actually trying to take energy from you in order to more physically appear.
The cold. That's what the cold is all about? Balthazar asked.
Yes. You best teach him not to do that, Christian. You're new as a vampire and need your strength.
Lizette said. How does he make it stop? Balthazar frowned at the spirit who lingered just a foot away from them now. Christian was glad that Balthazar had asked. His tongue clove to the roof of his mouth. He couldn't look away from David's pleading eyes. Was that what he had looked like that last day as he drove frantically around, looking for Christian and couldn't find him? Whoa, Christian, let's not. I guess we are standing, Balthazar said as he stood beside Christian.
I can look you in the eyes now. I'm as tall as you, David.
Christian found himself saying. Cold caressed his skin as David tried to touch him.
You should not let him do that either,
Lizette protested, but softly as if she already knew that he wasn't listening to her and would do what he wanted. How does he stop David exactly? Balthazar demanded.
Why are you still here, David?
Christian demanded. David opened his mouth, but there were no words that he could hear.
Why can't you leave me alone?
Christian's free hand that was clutching Balthazar's clenched into a fist. David tried to touch him again. Christian lurched backwards.
Why do you still think you have any right to be near me?
His voice rose. It never rose, but he was shouting. David tried to cup his face. And this time, instead of pulling away, Christian actually pushed David away with one hand flat against his chest. There was an electric zing the moment he touched David's body, and the ghost flew backwards. There was a shocked hiss from the Callies. Lizette's eyes were wide, and her mouth went from an O to a grin.
You can touch them. Actually touch them.
She breathed.
Amazing. Oh, I cannot wait to see what other things you can do.
Demonstration is over, Balthazar growled. Lisette, how does he put the genie back in the bottle? Christian was staring down at his hands. He could still feel David on his palms. He looked up. David was starting to back away. He was going to hide so he wouldn't be imprisoned. There was still that pleading look on David's face.
But no explanation, no apologies, just this insane need to be near me no matter what. Oh, David, I have tried not to hate you, but you are giving me very little choice.
Lisette, he's getting away. Balthazar's voice was tight. David was retreating to the corner of the room. He had started to disappear from view.
Yes, now, Christian, you need to take more blood and intend.
Too late. He's going.
Christian said as he tried to cut his thumb again. The old wound had healed completely.
Not too late. There are rules to this.
Lisette waved one hand over her head in a circle, and David was pulled back into full color and substantiation.
He will be kept here as long as it takes for you to learn to bind him, Christian.
Her silvery eyes met his.
But I'm betting you're going to be a quick learner.
Join us next time for episode 66, Porn.
If you don't think of yourself as that much of a reader, I understand. I don't think of myself as a typical author either. I'm a storyteller, and my only goal is to entertain you with exciting tales of romance and adventure, just like Everdark. I write what I like to read, and that's why you get hot heroes and badass villains, magical powers, fantasy worlds, and, of course, cliffhangers. It's a lot of fun for everyone, and I hope you decide to join in.
The Everdark podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thelis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing. Last on Everdark. Lisette teaches Christian to control David. Christian wants answers from his old lover, but David won't give them. Not yet. Balthazar is beside himself with worry as this new gift is dangerous. Now we turn back to Damon, Julian, and Camorn. Everdark, Episode 66, Porn. Damon and Julian emerged from the sea. Damon kept Julian behind him, even as his brave and furious fledgling tried to get around him. Camorn was the vampire who had killed his parents. It was rather like keeping a wolf pup at bay.
Is that him? Damn it, Damon, let me see him. I've got to see him.
Julian cried. Fledgling. He put no heat in that word. No censure either. It was a simple word of command. You will accept my determination in this was what it meant. Julian made a sound of angry distress, but allowed Damon to stand between him and the tall, platinum-haired Callie vampire in the red and black armor with a spear slung over his back, and the two werewolves that flanked him. Damon gave a grunt as he recognized the spear as Borage. It was a weapon that he had forged himself. Bold to bring it to face him. But a scan of Camorn's mind told him that the preceptor did not know who had created it, or its true nature. Besides, it was sheathed, and Camorn made no move towards it. The werewolves were of interest. They whined low in their throats and dipped their heads, afraid of him. They were not used to being afraid, but they sensed he was the greater predator, Damon was impressed by Caemorn's control over them. Saying nothing, Damon waded out of the water. Julian kept near to his back. He felt his fledgling straining to keep close. Julian's emotions were in a tumult, which was completely understandable.
Is he the one who killed my parents?
Julian sent telepathically.
Can you ask him, Damon? Can you make him tell you? And are those werewolves? Holy crap, they are werewolves!
Julian's questions came with rapid-fire rapidity. Damon was certain that his fledgling had not yet considered what the answers would mean to him, except about the werewolves. This was the same young man who had not wanted to punish the rapists in the alleyway. He had even grieved seeing Damon killing those who deserved more than death to raise Heath. But he believed he wanted death for the person who had stolen his parents' lives. They are indeed werewolves. Curious. As to the rest, let us see what he has to say first, Damon told Julian telepathically.
You're worried about me. You don't want me to do or say something rash because you think I'll regret it?
Am I wrong to worry?
No, I suppose not.
Julian's eyes were more red than purple, and his fangs were down.
But that means you think he is the killer, that he...
A full-body shudder went through his fledgling. I know nothing for certain yet. The fact that he has sought me out tells me he is not what I thought he was. Damon's eyes narrowed as he took in the still figure who had not yet spoken. He was waiting for Damon perhaps to make the first move, or he was too stunned to speak, a little bit of both from a scan of his mind. He's heard tales of me. He's impressed, not hateful. Julian's warm breath puffed against his shoulder.
You're impressive, that's a fact. He's just standing there, staring.
He's waiting.
For you to kill him?
Perhaps. Or to talk, most likely.
Then I'm getting our clothes. He's in armor, and I don't really want to talk to him naked. Not to mention that I don't want him looking at you either.
Julian said. You and the others are so shy. You feel weak when just in your fleshy covering. I believe it shows my strength. Clothes hide many sins. Damon lifted his chin. Julian snorted, and some of the tension in him bled out.
I suppose they do. But I know if I was in Caemorn's position, I'd be staring at your cock the whole entire time.
Good. He should. I am well endowed. Now Julian let out an audible laugh that had Caemorn flushing. That pale skin was hard to control, and the werewolves twitched. But though Julian was keenly aware of the three of them, he started towards their clothing that was left on the beach, completely assured in Damon's ability to protect them, not to mention his own fledgling strength. Clothe yourself first, Damon suggested. The next section of the podcast has been abridged. The instinct to keep Julian physically attached to his side raised its head, but that would show weakness in front of Caemorn. This clever Callie could not harm Damon, but he would rather not have violence anywhere near his fledgling. So he let Julian go to get their things that were in a little pile down the beach. Caemorn observed all of this silently. His black and crimson cloak stirred in the wind. His head cocked to the side as Julian took Damon up on his suggestion to dress first. He realized from a stray thought that Caemorn fully expected Julian to be serving Damon first, and in all things. Caemorn tensed, as he expected Julian to be disciplined harshly for not doing so. Damon's lips flattened. Yet another master who thought their fledgling a slave and not a treasure. Hopping up and down to pull up his jeans on wet skin, Julian paused as he took in this information from Damon's mind. He looked up at Damon's face. The Vampire King thought now that it would have been better if he had not passed this along. If Caemorn had killed Julian's parents, there would be a reckoning. He did not want his fledgling to be conflicted in any way about it. After tugging on his shirt, Julian came over with Damon's clothes, but he only shrugged the long wolf coat around his shoulders. Julian carefully folded the rest of his things and placed the pile on top of his boots. Now attired, the two of them regarded their three visitors. Julian took in the elegant armor, the pale hair and silver eyes. He was impressive, handsome, with a cold, aristocratic look to him. Ask him why he is here, Julian, please, Damon requested.
King Damon wishes to know why you're here,
Julian said. His voice was strong. He stared hard at Caemorn.
Can he not
Camon's voice lifted in confusion.
Speak? Oh, he can. But why should he do that for you?
Julian's voice was firm. His emotions were roiling again.
What if he killed my parents?
Julian was thinking.
Did he care? Did he think that they were people or just humans that had gotten in the way? Why didn't he kill me? Why?
Damon caressed Julian's cheek with his fingers, stopping the whirl of emotion.
I am here because I heard that a vampire calling himself Damon has emerged on Earth.
Camon began archly.
Calling himself?
Julian's lips curled into an angry smile.
If I had $1 for every vampire seeking to harm Damon who said that, you all know he's king.
Julian thrust a finger at Damon's chest.
I haven't been a vampire for long, but it is so damn obvious that he's not like us. Look at him, and tell me you honestly think he's some con artist.
Camon regarded Julian with an arched eyebrow.
You speak so freely in front of your superior?
That was like a red flag to a bull. Julian really didn't respect unearned authority. Damon couldn't help the flash of pride at his fledgling's fierceness and nobility.
You are not my superior.
Julian's voice was low and his eyes were narrowed. They were blood red like Damon's at that moment.
Even if you hadn't killed my parents, I'm the fledgling of the king. I'm second to none but him.
Camon rocked back slightly, but it was the first reason and not the second that had a spike of guilt. Definitely guilt. Oh, no. Flashed through Camon's mind. He should have known that Julian's feelings would bubble up in speaking when his temper was up. Julian saw the reaction too. He read the look, if not the preceptor's mind.
You did it.
Julian's voice was soft, almost disbelieving.
You killed my parents.
I did not kill you.
Camon murmured, and then Damon saw the future. It was so crisp and real that it felt like it had happened as he was seeing it. Julian would lunge for Camon's throat, screaming about his parents. His eyes would burn crimson. Camon would reach for Barrage, but Damon would snatch it away from him and impale both werewolves. Julian would have the preceptor on the ground. Camon would rake his fingernails down Julian's face. Those beautiful features would be marred terribly. Blood would rain down his cheeks and drip off of his chin, but the pain and blindness wouldn't stop Julian from continuing to attack. But it would give Camon the time to release several colored glass balls from his cloak. The spirits of the dead would slam into Julian's chest, and his fledgling would go grey at their touch. Damon would whisper, and the spirits would cease their attack. But because of Camon's strength, and Damon's current weakness was such that Damon would not be able to command them further. Julian would jump on Camon again. The preceptor would let out a howl that called every dying spirit to him from the city. They would look like an aurora borealis over the city for a moment before all of that power came into Camon, and he would use that to drain all of Julian's strength from him until Damon put himself between him and this powerful vampire. He would feel the pull on his strength as well, but he would end that by simply ripping Camon's throat open with his teeth and drinking it down. He would thrust his hand into Camon's chest and rip out his heart. He would turn and hold out the still beating heart to Julian, and Julian would take it. The moment his fledgling took that heart and bit into it, a terrible confluence of events would start. He would rule again, but it would be through sword and fire and ruin. His fledgling would agonize over what eating a heart had made of him. He would never truly be open to the joys of being a vampire again. His soul would be stained. Damon would not have that. So the moment that Julian was about to lunge, he stepped between him and Camon, placing the palm of one hand on Julian's chest. His fledgling let out a cry of frustration.
No! Let me! He killed them! He killed them!
The raw agony in Julian's voice would never leave him at that moment. I know. Damon spoke aloud for the first time. Draw Borage, or call your werewolves or summon a spirit, and your second life is over, Camon. He said the last without so much as turning his head. The preceptor stopped moving.
He killed them, Damon!
Julian wailed, and Damon enfolded Julian in his arms, holding that shaking lithe body that was racked with sobs of rage and grief so deep that it came from his soul. I know, my beloved, my one, but this is not the way.
For new members, it can be overwhelming to get hit with my entire story archive at once. So I want to tell you about one of my greatest hits, The Elven King's Blade. Like Crimson, it is completed, and it also stands alone as not part of a larger world. But unlike Crimson, it's high fantasy, so it's twice as long at 96 chapters. Here's the blurb. Elven King Athodin and modern human Kieran are unknowingly bonded across realms, but unless they complete the bond, they will die. Discovering his blade as human is impossible for Athodin to accept. For Kieran's part, accepting his fate to save an elven kingdom is just as hard to take. The Elven King's Blade is a fan favorite, and I hope you check it out if you decide to become a member of my serial website, wraithrain.com.
Why? You would have killed him for far cheaper reasons.
Julian raged. His fingers dug into Damon's back as if he were holding himself back by holding onto the Vampire King. Yes, I would have no qualms, but you would. You would. Damon's voice dropped off. Julian stiffened then, and before Damon could stop him, Julian caught hold of the vision Damon had experienced. He gasped as he got to the end and pulled back ashen-faced and horror-stricken. Damon caressed his face, cupping it tenderly. "It's not the way," Damon said.
No, but...
Bright tears filled Julian's eyes. The red faded to purple, and those tears fell down his cheeks.
He killed them. My parents. They didn't deserve that. They were...
I had no choice.
Caemorn interrupted. "If you value your throat, be silent," Damon murmured.
But you must understand why I am here. I have been misled, and I have...
Damon whirled around, and with a crook of his fingers, Caemorn was lifted from the sand. The Vampire King levitated the stunned Cali vampire to within a foot of him, and then tilted Caemorn's head so that only 6 inches separated their faces. Caemorn opened his mouth to shout for his werewolves to assist him, but Damon sent a compulsion to stop his lips from moving. Caemorn's silver eyes bulged. He stiffened even more as Damon reached over his shoulder. He expected an attack, but Damon simply unsheathed the spear Borage. "I forged this. The tip burns blue-white as you near your enemies," Damon explained to Julian as he showed him the spear. He spun it easily. The metal flowed easily over his palm and then the back of his hand. It was perfectly balanced. He switched it from hand to hand. He spun it so fast that it became a blur. Julian's tears dried, and awe filled his face.
You forged weapons.
Julian boggled. "Magical weapons," Damon clarified.
You were the one who forged Borage. What about the other weapons in Solace's spire?
These words were allowed to escape, as they did not seek to cause violence. Caemorn was such a fan of these weapons that he seemed to have forgotten he was being levitated. "Yes, I forged many weapons in my time," Damon answered curtly.
Why do they kill vampires then? Just simply picking some of the weapons up causes them to give a vampire their second death.
Caemorn cried. Damon caught the spinning spear and stuck the tip of it 1/2 inch from one of those silver eyes. "Because they are not for use by those vampires."
Borage did not kill me.
Caemorn sounded half proud. "You think that makes you worthy somehow?" Damon sneered. And for a moment, Damon saw within Caemorn the young vampire eagerly reading tales about him, imagining what it would be like to have the Vampire King as his master, and not the slender man-boy, the beautiful vampiric child that was his master, but who was crueler and colder than anyone that even the Cali vampire had known. Caemorn's master had never nurtured him, unless it was to make him do what his master wanted. There was no tenderness. There was no care. There was certainly no treasuring. But whenever things got bad for Caemorn, he thought of Damon, the Vampire King who had urged the vampires to victory against their immortal oppressors. He thought of Damon when he was alone, when he had an impossible task before him, when there was no one he could trust. "Do not put your dreams on me," Damon thought.
What?
Julian turned to look at him, overhearing the words. Nothing, my one. You needn't worry. Just something unrelated to you.
If you're sure.
Julian's brow was furrowed. I am certain, my one.
I have done what few have done before me,
Caemorn told him with that arrogant tilt of his head, even when he knew who Damon really was and wanted his favor, but he couldn't help himself. Self-defense mechanism. The tip of barrage drifted closer. Caemorn drew in a sharp breath. He nearly went cross-eyed watching the tip of barrage, but then he let out that breath.
The tip isn't glowing.
You think you are safe because of that? Damon's voice was silky smooth, but it was a clever observation.
I'm not your prey. You don't intend to kill me. Otherwise it would be burning blue-white.
Caemorn pointed out. More cleverness. I should not be surprised. He did climb the ranks of vampire politics. He did it very young. He is used to being in difficult situations.
Don't be so sure.
Julian growled, hands fisted at his sides.
I have watched you for nearly 2 decades of your life, Julian. You are not one to wish someone dead, even someone deserving of it.
Caemorn responded. He was even more relaxed.
And strangely, I think King Damon will honor your feelings in this.
For now, Damon's voice was silky smooth.
Why did you do it?
Julian stepped towards Caemorn. It was not a threatening movement, but one of utter agony.
Why did you kill them and take them from me?
My master ordered me to. There was no choice. The only thing I was able to do was to spare your life.
Caemorn answered, his silver eyes flickering for a moment between them.
If you truly have all the gifts, King Damon, you can determine whether I am telling the truth or not.
Is he? He can't be.
Julian shook his head. Damon looked into Caemorn's mind. He and his master, the beautiful boy, spoke in a graveyard shrouded in mist, and he heard the words they had spoken to one another. The Harrows have got to be eliminated, Caemorn, the beautiful boy vampire said. Now, tonight, no more waiting. We cannot take the chance they will reveal this to others.
What about...
Caemorn swallowed. He normally had little compunction about killing, but killing children always bothered him, and Julian Harrow was 12.
the boy? Their child?
Getting squeamish, Caemorn. Caemorn's master sounded amused.
I doubt he knows anything about this. No parent would tell their child.
Again, with the child. Caemorn's master tipped his head back towards the moon. He was smiling even as he seemed put out. If Julian Harrow truly is unaware of his parents' work, then he can be spared. Otherwise, you have to get rid of him personally. Damon allowed Caemorn to fall to the ground, but the Cully vampire was as graceful as all their kind, and even though he was startled to be let go, he landed on his feet rather like a cat. He straightened and smoothed his hands down his front. His gaze locked on Barrage, not because he thought it could protect him, but instead just a longing for it. A longing for a thing of beauty that he had come to see as a connection to the very immortals that he had been taught to despise, and yet did not. Not all, anyways, but Damon kept it.
He bargained for my life?
Julian turned a disbelieving gaze onto Damon.
What? Why?
He didn't want to kill a child, Damon muttered. The preceptor brushed invisible dust off his shoulders.
You make it sound like a weakness. Forgive me for not wanting to kill someone completely unable to protect themselves.
The Harrows were the same as their son in that. All humans are prey. They are hardly worthy adversaries, Damon pointed out. You did not want to kill them either, but you were only willing to challenge your master on the child. A flash of temper crossed Caemorn's face.
You say it like it's so easy, but you don't know. Or maybe you do.
His eyes narrowed.
Maybe you do.
Who is your master? Why did he want my parents killed?
Julian asked. He was still so fragile, but not killing Caemorn was actually helping him. Even without the vision of the future, Damon saw that his instinct was right. Julian was not a killer, not in cold blood. To defend himself or someone else was one thing, but not to eat an enemy's heart. When Caemon had to be eliminated, Daemon would do it.
Because of who he is and the fact that King Daemon is here.
Caemon reached up to his neck, as if he felt the memory of someone strangling him. "Who is your master?" Daemon asked, even as he already knew. Caemon met both their gazes.
The immortal Callie. And he wants to set me up to take the blame for his machinations against you. But I am done being his pawn.
Join us next time for episode 67, Ally or Enemy.
If you don't think of yourself as that much of a reader, I understand. I don't think of myself as a typical author either. I'm a storyteller, and my only goal is to entertain you with exciting tales of romance and adventure, just like Everdark. I write what I like to read, and that's why you get hot heroes and badass villains, magical powers, fantasy worlds, and, of course, cliffhangers. It's a lot of fun for everyone, and I hope you decide to join in.
The Everdark podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thelis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing. Last on Everdark, Daemon and Julian confront Caemon. They discover that Caemon's master, Artemis Alucius, or really the immortal Callie, forced him to kill the Harrows, but Caemon was able to bargain with him to save Julian. Caemon has now sought them out as he realizes that Callie intends for him to be the fall guy with Daemon, and he's done with that. Everdark, Episode 67, Ally or Enemy. Sweat coated Christian's upper lip as he tried to draw David into the diamond, but his former lover stayed in the corner no matter how much he willed David near him. David's eyes were filled with grief, but also he was determined not to be imprisoned in the diamond. Lizette wasn't letting him leave altogether, though. She sipped blood, ankles crossed, expression serene as she effortlessly kept David's soul in the room for Christian to practice on. Christian wiped a hand across his forehead.
It isn't working, or I'm not doing it right. I can feel him, but I can't move him,
Christian said, and his whole body slumped forward, shaking from the effort.
Yet, it isn't working yet. I can feel you reaching towards him. You are powerful, Christian, but it is like a person trying to play a piano with a hammer,
Lizette remarked, her flawless forehead furrowed.
Being a speaker makes you different from a pure Callie. There must be something in how you impose your will upon the dead that is vastly different from ours.
She frowned slightly.
Keep trying. Perhaps I will see it as you continue your practice.
He's had enough for now, Balthazar said, and grasped Christian's wrist, tugging him to sit down. Christian gratefully collapsed onto the sofa beside him. One of Balthazar's strong arms encircled his shoulder. Christian closed his eyes and breathed. His eyes flew open right away as he recalled that David was in the room. His gaze immediately went to the spirit. David continued to look upon him with utter longing. Christian gritted his teeth. Did he want to know what David was truly thinking? Or maybe he could guess. He wanted to tell Christian he was sorry, but it wouldn't be really sorry, because David would then turn it all around so it was about him, like he always had. Christian somehow would end up being the bad guy for all that had happened, even though he had been a teenager and David the adult.
You've been quite good for a new master, Balthazar. I fully expected you to jump up and insist this all stop ages ago.
Lizette chuckled. Christian knew that Balthazar actually had been wanting to jump up and insist that he rest quite a while ago, but one look between them, and his master had backed off. Yes, well, I do believe that the quicker Christian learns to control this gift, the safer he will be. and his safety and well-being are at the top of my list of priorities, Balthazar answered with a thin smile. Christian did not let his master's true feelings out of the bag. He knew enough about Lisette to guess that allowing her to see a weakness was a bad idea.
Teaching a speaker is a unique opportunity, and I assure you that I will do my absolute best to keep him safe and sound. But there are unknowns. I am working only on the rumours I have heard passed down through the centuries.
Lisette pointed out.
So long as you remember, Lisette,
Sophia said coolly.
to treat Christian as if you were a treasure, and not like my own fledgling.
Lisette challenged with a faint smile on her lips. Sophia shook her blonde head, her curls bouncing lightly.
Come now, Lisette. We both know if a Callie fledgling suffers injuries during the practice of their gift, it is considered the fledgling's failure and theirs alone. If they cannot survive the gift, they are not worthy of survival.
Lisette inclined her head.
You may think it cruel and unfeeling, but I assure you that I'll always ensure that the world stays safe for all.
What do you mean?
Christian asked. He had dragged his gaze away from David. The urge to go over to the spirit and try to harm it was strong in his blood. It wasn't logical. It was sheer emotion, but he knew that physical violence would beget nothing. Lisette set her cup on the coffee table and tapped her lower lip as she thought about it.
Being a Callie is not like being any other type of vampire, except perhaps being a seer, but the danger they pose is only really to themselves.
Christian glanced over at Sophia. She was usually so bright and cheerful that he often forgot about the burden she carried, which was to see the future. She was watching Lisette with large silver eyes, and sadness seemed to weigh her down at that moment as if Lisette's words held weight. Every vampire believes their bloodline is the best and most powerful, Balthazar remarked dryly as he massaged the back of Christian's neck. The tension bled out of him as those fingers worked, and Christian gratefully leaned his head forward. Having David here was more stressful than he would have imagined. Lisette's eyes narrowed.
Ah, yes, but that is simple arrogance, not truth. I am speaking of facts.
Really? How is being able to raise a bunch of bones more powerful than being able to change a person's mind? Balthazar challenged. You are here, a place you never thought you would be, because of that. She inclined her head again.
Yes, but other than yourself, Balthazar, how many Iros could have done that? None, I'd wager.
A single Iros could control every country on Earth, Balthazar said. Nuclear weapons could be in the palm of our hands. We could rule the world easily. Isn't that the ultimate power?
No.
She answered with a little smile on her lips.
Then what is?
Christian asked.
To replace faith with certainty.
She answered.
Every human being on this planet is ruled by their understanding of death, whether they think it is the end or whether they believe it is the beginning, whether there is a god or gods, whether there is a heaven, a hell, a purgatory.
Catholics got rid of purgatory a while back.
Arceus mused.
Yes, well, it is irrelevant because whatever they believe, it is all based upon faith.
She said.
But what happens when faith becomes facts? The Callie know that there is something beyond this life. We touch it daily. Imagine if a simple, stupid, low-level Callie were to expose that souls exist, that the body can be resurrected, that there is a place beyond. Imagine it.
And Christian did. It would cause chaos if the reality of it spread. Religions would be upended. People might simply commit suicide or even homicide to get themselves and others through the veil. Life would become much cheaper.
So, while the Iros could control the world, the Callie can send it into a chaos that not even you, Balthazar, could stop.
She answered. Balthazar shrugged. Well, it probably explains why none of us has been allowed to go so far.
The Iros do influence people all over, do they not?
Lisette challenged. His master nodded. Yes, but we are limited in how much we are allowed to do by the council. And, as you so rightly pointed out, my gift's strength is unique.
So, basically, if a Callie fledgling uses their gift in such a way that causes harm to them or others, you don't help them?
Christian clarified.
Not quite so harsh, but those who are unable to control their gift after reasonable instruction are not seen as viable Callie.
She explained.
Viable?
Christian thought.
I'm glad she's not in charge of whether I'm seen as viable or not.
Balthazar sensed his unease and drew him closer. One would think the master has failed to teach well enough, instead of the fledgling has failed to learn. Lisette laughed delicately behind her hand.
We are not romantic about our fledglings, dear Balthazar. Only a few are expected to survive. We accept that from the get-go.
Arceus shifted uncomfortably by the fireplace.
It is a hard thing you must do then.
She lifted her hands.
You should all be thanking us for our willingness to sacrifice for the common good.
From a certain point of view, I can see that.
Christian said softly.
But that means there can never be any trust between Callie, and not even Master and Fledgling.
Quite correct.
She answered without hesitation.
Perhaps we should continue your lesson? This spirit of yours is tugging at his leash. Not that he'll ever be able to escape me, but still.
Christian reluctantly rose to his feet. There was no real reason to stand rather than to sit, other than it helped prepare him mentally to fight with David. He turned towards the spirit once more, and he felt that familiar stab of pain, regret, and shame when he saw David. His emotions swirled inside him with the same intensity of the first time. David gazed back at him with anguish.
You shouldn't have lingered around me, David.
Christian muttered.
You should have stayed away. But you didn't. And now look where we are.
He extended a hand towards the spirit, even though he had no plan to touch David again as he had before. He felt rather ridiculous, as if he were trying to use the Force or something, and maybe he was. He tried to imagine tugging David towards him and the diamond that he held in his right hand. David did not move. He frowned, furrowing his brow, tightening his muscles, imagining his will being imposed upon the insubstantial vapor that David was. Nothing. Christian shook his head.
This isn't working. I feel like I'm not touching him at all.
You cannot touch him. He is a spirit. Do not think of him as a physical object. And you are not Ashia, so you cannot move him with your mind. You must command the spirit.
Lisette explained.
But how?
Christian asked. Balthazar was suddenly frowning. He put the pointer finger of his right hand to his temple, as he often did when communicating with Damon telepathically. King Damon just informed me that we are going to have another visitor.
Who?
Arceus pushed off the mantle, instantly alert. Sophia jumped down from the sofa arm and chirruped.
Oh, good. We're going to be able to get Seer.
What? Balthazar stared at her, a little unnerved. But before she could say more, the corner of the room nearest the fireplace blurred, and between one blink and the next, Damon, Christian, another vampire with the classic Callie pale blonde hair, and what can only be described as two werewolves appeared. Balthazar's mouth dropped open. Arceus's eyes went wide. Sophia clasped her hands together in seeming delight. Lisette and her silent minions all turned to stare. Their feelings were not readily apparent, but Christian knew they likely felt something as their expressions became as blank as dolls, and then there was chaos.
Did you know that there is a Wraith Rain Discord? This is completely fan-run. I have nothing to do with it, but it's been going on for years and is absolutely great. On the Discord server, you will find fan art, fan fiction, discussions of lore, latest chapters, and even some fan-run events. Since there are Wraith Rain fans all over the world, chances are that you'll always find someone up and chatting. The server is called Winterhaven, and I'll post the link in the notes down below.
Without saying a word, Balthazar was suddenly across the room and had the unknown vampire pinned to the wall by the throat. He was snarling, silver eyes blazing, fangs out. The unknown vampire let out a gasp, and spittle flecked his lips, but he did not try to fight, which was strange as it was clear that Balthazar loathed him. The werewolves, evidently this vampire's protectors, turned to lunge at Balthazar's back, but Arceus spun towards them. He kicked one in the head, then pinned that head to the ground with one of his huge boots. He grabbed the other around the neck and put it in a sleeper hold. They both howled and thrashed, but Arceus handled them with surprising ease. It was the first time that Christian had seen Arceus be anything but utterly gentle. The doorway to the room was suddenly filled with House Ravenscroft vampires. William lightly jumped over the back of the sofa and went to help Arceus with the werewolves. He slammed a hand into the werewolf's stomach, and it curled over onto itself. For a child, he was strong as hell. Isabel was suddenly grabbing Christian and pulling him away from the fight, using her own body to shield him from danger. He tried to fight her, but she easily caught his wrist, and he felt a wave of calm flow from her to him. She was trying to get him to do as she asked. No, not as she asked, as Balthazar did. Christian realized that this had all been agreed beforehand. Who was to do what in case of an emergency? Balthazar was sending out commands through his mind, and everyone was moving accordingly. But Christian was not leaving his master and best friend in this room with all this danger. Then suddenly the word, "Stop," flowed out from Damon. His lips did not move. His expression was peaceful, but there was no getting away from the command. Christian didn't want to. His arms fell loosely to his sides as he stopped fighting Isabel, and she stopped trying to remove him from the room. And it wasn't just him. Everyone stopped. Even the werewolves ceased howling. They all looked like statues.
So, this is King Damon.
Lisette whispered. Her silver eyes flickered over him. He was dressed, or not dressed really, in his long wolf coat and nothing else. Both his and Julian's hair was wet, so they truly had been swimming in the ocean despite the fall's chill. Even just wearing the wolf coat with wet hair, Damon looked as kingly as he always did. There was something about him that just compelled. Christian would normally have distrusted this, but he found he could not. But that only slightly bothered him because he knew Damon and knew he could be trusted. "My king, you do know who this is?" Balthazar let out a strangled laugh.
Camorn Losis. Yeah, we know.
Julian answered for him. His best friend looked grim and not unhappy that Balthazar was throttling the Order's preceptor. Christian wanted to go to him, but there was no way to do so. Too many people, and the werewolves were in his way. He could only send his good thoughts to Julian. His best friend went on.
It turns out that his master is Callie, and he wants to join our team.
The news fell like a bomb on the group. Everyone had been still before, but now they seemed to go rigid with surprise. "Camorn is a lily-livered piece of garbage," Balthazar said between clenched teeth. "You think a normal Callie can't be trusted? Camorn brings the idea of betrayal to a whole new level."
I hold no love for you either, Balthazar,
Camorn said crisply. He was remarkably calm for a vampire being strangled. He seemed completely unafraid. Christian had to acknowledge that he was brave, if nothing else.
One thing you definitely know about me is that I do what is in my best interests. And serving King Damon is definitely that. I have been betrayed and set up. I want my revenge.
It was Arceus who spoke next.
It is true that you always do what's best for you, Camorn. But what happens when you think serving King Damon is not best for your purposes? You cannot be trusted because you are incapable of being loyal to anyone or anything.
Camorn let out a laugh.
Oh, you would think that way, Arceus. You, who still supports the Order despite the fact that no one came to your defense. Not even Fiona.
To my shame, I did not.
It was Fiona who answered. She was in the doorway. Her eyes were fixed on Camorn.
So this is where you went,
Camorn murmured, and Christian could almost see the calculation in the preceptor's eyes.
Yes, are you really surprised? Blood slaves in Solus? The requirement that fledglings be sent to become confessors against their will? And the biggest issue of all, knowing that our texts in the Order were a lie.
Fiona's silver eyes glowed.
You always wanted certainty, Fiona. Black and white, fact and fiction, but religion is never that. You just wanted to believe it could be.
Camorn sneered. Balthazar slammed the back of his head against the wall. Camorn barred his teeth, and his hands curled into fists, but he released them and stood still.
I cannot believe you let her in, Balthazar. It was your chance to turn her out into the cold. Why didn't you?
Camon asked.
Because he gives people who deserve it second chances.
Arceus said.
No, I don't think so. I think that he did it to please you, Arceus. That, and he's never been very bloodthirsty.
Camon mocked.
You should be glad of that.
Christian found himself saying.
It's the only thing keeping you alive now.
The preceptor's eyes went to Christian. He took in Christian's form, saw the diamond that was slightly clenched in one hand, and then he saw David. David, who was still there.
A speaker?
He whistled. Balthazar must have tightened his hold on Camon's throat, because he let out a wheeze. Do not address or even look at my fledgling, Camon.
But I can help him.
Camon offered.
I am helping him, Camon. We do not need your assistance.
Lizette said primly.
Can't get him to go into the stone.
Camon addressed Christian again. Christian hesitated, then shook his head, but said nothing. Camon smiled.
She's been using Kali techniques. You are an Iros. Be one.
The last was said clearly as a bell, and it suddenly made sense to Christian. He found himself turning towards David, and without hesitation, he held out the diamond. Then he reached for the spirit's mind. It was something he had shied away from. He felt it like a moth flapping its powdery wings in a lightly clasped hand.
Come,
he said, using compulsion. And David was yanked across the room and disappeared into the stone. Christian let out a bark of unexpected laughter. He stared into the diamond.
I did it. It worked,
Christian said. He looked up. Camon was smiling. Lizette frowned deeply, but not at him. She was clearly displeased with her own performance. Christian slipped the diamond in his pocket. He was in control again. Balthazar shoved Camon against the wall again. The shelves nearby wobbled. That's not going to save you, Camon. You should have never come here.
I came by invitation of the king,
Camon said with a strange smile. Damon, who had remained utterly silent, other than the single command, put a hand on Balthazar's shoulder. Iros. Balthazar let out a growl, but released Camon with that simple request. My king, he better give us something worthwhile.
He will.
It was Sophia who spoke. She came up to the two of them and took one of Balthazar's hands in hers and Damon's in the other.
We can get Seer now. With Wyvern, Iros, and now Camorn's assistance, we can get to her. She's in the spire, a place only the preceptor can go.
Camorn had been smoothing out his cloak and hair, but he went still at her words, and his eyes slid over to Damon.
You have Seer imprisoned in the spire?
Arceus's voice was strangely inflectionless. Christian could almost see Camorn decided not to lie. He continued to straighten his clothing and not meet all the curious and bewildered gazes turned towards him.
Is it true? Is Seer imprisoned in the spire?
Arceus's voice rose. One of the werewolves let out a whine as the confessor must have squeezed its throat a little tighter.
Yes.
Camorn finally answered with coolness.
Every preceptor has kept her there and made her use her powers of prediction to help them in one simple goal.
His eyes flickered over to Damon and away. Damon's red eyes were fixed upon him. Christian couldn't read the Vampire King's feelings or thoughts from that look, but he still wouldn't have wanted Damon looking at him like that. What goal is that? Balthazar asked.
To stop King Damon from returning.
Camorn answered simply.
Clearly, she's been lying to us all along.
Join us next time for episode 68. I am Iros.
Want to get the latest updates on what's happening with the podcasts, books, serials, manga, and the shop? Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get video notifications and see the community channel. Or you can be old school and join our mailing list. Links to both are in the notes. Thanks, guys, and we hope you join us.
The Everdark podcast by X Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thillis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer, Edited by Matthew Prince. Continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing.